Hello everyone, good evening. My name's Nicole and welcome back to our English class. It's another week. I hope you had a great weekend. No? It's another week for us for English classes. Now I am glad to see you all here for what is our third lecture on connected speech. Now today we move on to another very important part of how English sounds when people speak it naturally. This new topic, it builds directly on everything we started learning yesterday or the other week, last Friday, I mean, with Alishon. Now, as you remember, we spent a lot of time last meeting carefully understanding elision, right? We saw how sounds sometimes disappear completely from words in natural and fast speech, which helps people to speak faster and more smoothly, and it makes sentences flow easily. Now, elision is a key part of why spoken English often sounds different from written English. Today, we will learn about assimilation. This is another big and very common way that sounds change when we speak English quickly and naturally. While elision was all about sounds being left out, assimilation works in a slightly different but equally important way. With assimilation, sounds do not disappear, instead, they change. They become more like other sounds that are very close to them in a word or a sentence. Now, this process of assimilation, just like elision, it helps people speak more easily and quickly. It helps to make words and sentences blend together without any stops or difficult mouth movements. So when sounds change to become more like their neighbors or the sounds beside them, our mouth, it does less work and the words just flow out. Okay? Now, so assimilation here, it is another important reason why real world English or conversational English, as native speakers use it constantly. It is connected and sounds natural and fluent. Okay? It reminds us again that speaking clearly is not the same as speaking naturally. Again, speaking clearly is not the same as speaking naturally. And understanding these changes makes us better listeners and speakers. We will begin our deep dive into assimilation right after this. We have the first slide. Of course, it is important that I give you the clear definition of assimilation for you to understand before we try to apply it in practice. It helps us truly understand what this process means in spoken English. Now, assimilation is a very common and natural process that happens all the time in spoken English. It happens when one sound changes to become from. Okay. Again, it try let us break this down very slowly. Again, assimilation is happens when one sound changes to become more like neighboring sound. It creates smooth transitions and especially common between words. It's very common. It's a natural process that happens all the time in conversational English. It happens again when one sound changes to become more like a neighboring sound. So this means that when we speak words quickly in a sentence, a sound usually a consonant sound here, no, that it does not exactly like does not stay exactly the same as it would if you said that sound all by itself. Okay, so instead, this sound, it changes its shape or its quality or the way you make it with your mouth. It changes to be more similar to the sound that comes right next to it, either the sound just before it or most often the sound just after it. Okay, think of it like this. Your mouth is already getting how do you call that, getting ready to make the next sound. Because it is getting ready, the sound you're making right now might start to take on some qualities, some features of that next sound. For example, if you make a sound with your tongue at the front of your mouth, and the very next sound needs your tongue to be at the back of your mouth, your tongue might move partway back already for the first sound. Okay? So this helps your mouth prepare for the next sound without a sudden big change. So this change in the sound, it is not a mistake. It is not a mistake that a speaker makes. No, it is an automatic thing that our mouths and brains do naturally to make speaking easier and faster and as well as more effortless. So this changing of sounds that become more alike creates smoother transitions in our speech. Let us think deeply about what smoother transitions really means. It means that when sounds change to be more alike, your mouth does not have to make a big, awkward, or sudden movements between sounds. If two sounds are very different, your mouth has to stop and then quickly move to a totally different position. So this can feel like a small bump or a small stop in your speech, but when sounds change to be more similar to their neighbors, they flow into each other very easily. Like your tongue, your lips, even your jaw move in a very continuous and easy way from one sound to the next. There are no sudden bumps or hard stops, which, this helps to connect words together in a very smooth line. This smooth connection, it means that your sentences sound like one natural continuous stream of sound, rather than many separate words with small breaks or pauses in between them. So again, when one sound gets ready for the next sound by becoming more like it, the whole flow of your speech becomes much, much more natural and effortless. It makes speaking feel easy for the person talking. Okay? All right. This assimilation. It is especially common between words. So this means you will hear this change happening very often at the place where one word finishes and the very next word begins. For example, the very last sound of one word might change because of the very first sound of the next word. This is a very key and important part of how individual words link up and join together when people speak fluent English. It allows sentences to sound like one continuous stream of sounds rather than a series of separate individual words. No? This joining together of sounds makes conversation flow very naturally. It helps people speak without thinking hard about each small sound because the sounds are already helping each other blend. Assimilation is a fundamental aspect of natural fluent English, so it happens automatically all the time without speakers consciously thinking about it, simply because it makes speaking easier and faster for our mouths. Okay? All right. Now that we understand what assimilation means, no? Assimilation by definition, which is one sound changes to become more like a nearby sound or its neighboring sound. Let's move on to why does assimilation happens. So it gives us the main reasons behind this natural sound speech in a spoken English. All right. First, assimilation happens to make speaking faster and easier. Now, when we talk, our mouths and tongues are constantly moving very quickly to kind of like make many different sounds. If sounds stay exactly as they are in single words, sometimes the jump from one sound to the very next sound can be difficult or slow, and it can slow down our speech too. But when a sound changes a little bit to become more like its neighbor, it makes the whole process faster. Your mouth does not have to stop completely and then kind of like start a totally new movement. Instead, it makes a smoother, a more direct path to the next sound. This saves time and effort, also making the entire act of speaking less tiring and quicker for the one speaking or the speaker. Okay, to make speaking faster and easier. Second, assimilation happens to help speech flow naturally. Now, let's try to use an analogy, a simple analogy. You can think about a river that flows smoothly. Okay, connected speech with assimilation is like that river. If sounds do not change and remain very distinct, like separated, there can be tiny awkward stops or bumps between words. These little stops break the smooth flow of talking. Now, when sounds change and become more alike, they connect without these bumps. They blend into each other, and this creates a continuous stream of sound, so sentences sound more natural and connected, rather than a series of separate individual words. So, this natural flow is a key sign of fluent English. Third, assimilation also happens to reduce effort when moving from one mouth shape to another. Now, every sound we make needs a specific shape from our mouth, from our tongue, and from our lips. Um, all those parts of our mouth, we call it articulators. For example, some sounds need your tongue at the front, others at the back. Some need your lips closed, others open. If you have two very different sounds next to each other, your mouth has to make a big, fast change from one shape to a very different one. This takes a lot of effort and quick muscle movement. But with assimilation, one sound changes to prepare your mouth to the next sound. So your mouth does not have to jump as far as or as quickly between different shapes. It reduces the hard work your mouth has to do, which makes the speech feel more comfortable and less tiring. Especially during long conversations, it's a way your body makes speaking efficiently. Okay? Finally, um, we have here the slide tells us a very important point about assimilation. Assimilation helps English sound connected. It's a natural change, not a mistake. Now, this means that when sounds change because of assimilation, it is not an error in speaking, just like elision. Okay, it is not something that fluent speakers try to avoid. Instead, it is how English naturally connects words together. So these changes it make the language sound smooth, fast, and natural, exactly how native speakers speak all the time. And understanding this helps you see that these sound changes are normal. They are a sign of fluent natural English, not a sign of poor pronunciation. It helps you recognize and even use these patterns to make your own English sound more natural and to better understand others. Okay? So those are the reasons why does assimilation happen. For a moment, let me just quickly um, do something. I have to fix something. Very quickly, very quickly. All right, I'm back. Okay. We're done with this slide. Let's move on to the next. All right. Now, here it gives us many very clear and useful examples of assimilation. Now, these examples it truly show us exactly how one sound changes its form to become more like a nearby sound or its neighboring sound. Especially when people speak English naturally and quickly. Now, let's explore each example in great detail to fully grasp this fascinating process of sound change. Okay? Let's start by looking at the very first phrase listed here. All right. Okay. The full clear way to say this phrase is did you? Did you? Again, did you? Now, if you speak these two words, no, slowly and carefully, you can distinctly feel and hear the D sound at the end of did, and then the Y sound that begins in U. So you can feel your tongue touch the roof of your mouth for the D, and then okay? You can feel your tongue touch the roof of your mouth when you try to pronounce or say the letter D sound, right? D, D. It touches the roof of your mouth. D, D, D. Okay, and then it move for the Y. However, when people say this phrase in natural flowing conversation, conversations, the sounds change very much and it becomes didja. Again, didja. Here, something very interesting happens. The D sound from did, the D sound, the last D sound, there's two D sound here, sounds here, right? The first D sound and then the last D sound. Now, the last D sound from dead and the Y sound, which is often represented as letter J in sound chart or in IPA. So that's why you see here letter J inside is slanted brackets, because when we try to provide the IPA transcription or the International Phonetic Alphabet symbols for the sounds in a word, in a phrase, or even in a sentence, it is always inside these slanted brackets. Okay? And again, I've mentioned it in our one of our previous sessions that the representation, the symbol of letter Y sound is letter J. So don't get confused. This one here, letter J, inside the slanted bracket, it is representing the Y sound. Y. Okay, Y as in you. You, your, yes. So those. Y, letter Y sound, is represented with a letter J symbol in IPA transcription. Again, what is IPA transcription, or what is IPA? It is International Phonetic Alphabet. It consists of symbols that represents all the sounds in English. Okay? All right. So going back here, we get the letter D sound, the last D sound in dead, and the Y sound in you. These sounds do not stay separate. So instead, they blend together and change completely to form a new sound. Like the J sound that you hear at the beginning of the word jump. This happens because both the D sound and the Y sound involve your tongue being high in your mouth. So touching or coming very close to the roof of your mouth. That's where the D and Y sound usually is made. Okay? So instead of your tongue making a clear stop or for the D sound and then a separate quick move for the Y sound, your mouth combines these two movements. Your tongue essentially prepares for the Y sound by changing the D sound to already include some of that Y quality. So this makes the new combined sound, which is the letter J, it will make it much softer and faster to say. It creates an incredibly smooth and effortless transition from one word to the next, which helps the words flow together without any tiny breaks or extra effort. Okay? Alright. For a moment, let me just quickly check my screen if it's okay. I think all good. Alright, all good. Let's continue. Next, let's carefully examine the second phrase on the slide. The full and distinct way to say this phrase is don't you. Again, don't you. If you articulate these words slowly, you clearly make the T sound at the end of don't and then the Y sound for you. You can feel your tongue hitting the back of your teeth for T, letter T. So it's the back, it's, the tongue, your tongue, when you try to pronounce the letter T, it's at the back of your front teeth or the upper teeth. Okay? And then we try to move for the Y. But in natural quick speech, the sounds change dramatically and the phrase becomes don'tcha. Again, don'tcha. Don'tcha. In this instance, the T sound from the end of don't and the Y sound from you, they combine and they transform. They do not just blend, they literally change into a new sound, which is like the CH sound, okay? CH or the ch sound you hear at the beginning of the word chair. Now think about how you typically make the T sound. Your tongue makes a very quick touch and then a small swift release from behind your top teeth. For the Y sound, your tongue is also held high. Y. In fast speech, your mouth automatically changes its shape very quickly to make this new single blended CH sound or ch sound. This particular change makes it significantly easier and much faster for your mouth to move from the T position to the Y position. Instead of two separate quick actions, it becomes one flowing action. It strongly helps your speech flow without any awkward pauses or sharp, distinct movements between the words. Okay? So that's for the second um second phrase. Now let's carefully consider the third example presented. The phrase in its full form is good boy. Again, good boy. If you pronounce this slowly and clearly, you can hear a distinct D sound at the end of good and then a clear B sound at the beginning of boy. Now you can feel your tongue touching the roof of your mouth for the D sound and then your lips closing for the B sound. For the D sound, your tongue is touching the roof of your mouth. D, D. It clearly touches. For the B sound, it how do you call that? Um for the B sound, um your lips are closing, right? B, B, B. All right. However, when people speak this phrase naturally, it very often changes. The phrase becomes good boy. Good boy. What happens here is that the D sound at the very end of the word good, it changes its form completely and becomes a B sound. This specific change, it happens because the very next sound, the first sound of the word boy, it is also a B sound. Both the D sound and the B sound are made by stopping the air briefly in your mouth. But the D sound uses your tongue touching the roof of your mouth, while the B sound uses your lips closing together. When a D sound comes directly before a B sound, it is much easier for your mouth to simply prepare for the upcoming B sound by changing the D into a B as well. So this makes the entire phrase easier to say with two B's sound in a row. So your lips simply close once for both sounds instead of your tongue moving for a D sound and then your lips closing separately for a B sound. So this dramatically reduces the effort needed and makes the phrase much smoother and quicker to speak. Okay? Finally, let's have the very last example. The phrase in its full clear form is that girl. Again, that girl. If you pronounce this slowly, you make a clear T sound at the end of that, which you know it is done by touching your tongue behind your teeth. And then you move your tongue for the G sound in girl, which is made at the back of your mouth. G, g, g. It's made at the back of your mouth when you try to pronounce the letter G as in goat sound or girl sound. G, g, at the back of your mouth. Now, when people speak this phrase in natural conversation, it very often changes significantly. The phrase becomes that girl, that girl. In this situation, the T sound at the end of that, it changes its shape and becomes a K sound. This particular change, it happens because the very next sound, the first sound of the word girl, is a G sound. Both the K and sound and the G sound are made at the very back of your mouth by lifting the back part of your tongue, right? Like, okay, let's try to pronounce the two sounds. Let's start with G. G, G. How about K? K, K. It is produced at the back of your mouth, right? For a moment. So they have like the same process of making their sounds for K and G. Now that T sound here, however, is made at the very front of your mouth, right behind your upper teeth. T, T. So when a T sound comes immediately before a G sound, your tongue automatically and quickly moves to the back of your mouth. So the T sound then takes on the shape of a K sound because K and G sounds use the exact same mouth shape, which formed at the back of your mouth. So this makes the transition between that and girl incredibly much easier and, of course, more natural. So your tongue is already in the right position or very close to it for the G sound, eliminating a large sudden movement from front to back of the mouth. All right? Okay. So, yeah, that's the last example. So, these many examples truly and clearly show us how assimilation works in real everyday English phrases, they fully demonstrate that assimilation is about sounds changing to become more like their neighbors. So, this process consistently makes our speech flow more smoothly, allows us to speak faster, and requires significantly less effort from our mouths. It is a fundamental and constantly occurring part of how natural, fluent English sounds. Okay? All right. Let's continue. Okay, for a moment. I'm sorry, there are times that I have to, you know, um, get out of the frame and pause because I am experiencing a mild cough, so I have to really cough. Of course, I cannot do that in front of the camera and in front of you, so I had to excuse myself. Okay? All right. Now, here, we've already done with some simple examples, right, for assimilation. Here, we will be having more examples of assimilation in action. These phrases, it truly show us in a deep way exactly how one sound changes its form to become very much like a nearby sound when people speak English naturally and quickly. So let's explore each example with extreme care and go into every small detail to fully understand this important process of sound change. Let's start by looking very closely at the very first phrase listed on this table. The full, complete, and clear way to say this phrase is, did you eat your lunch? Again, did you eat your lunch? Now, if you say each single word in this full sentences very slowly and with great care, you can distinctly feel and hear the crisp D sound at the very end of the word did, right? So immediately after that you make after that D sound, immediately after that you make and hear the clear Y sound that begins the word you can clearly feel your tongue making two quite separate and distinct movements in your mouth for these two sounds. So first, your tongue touches the roof of your mouth right behind your teeth for the D sound. um Sorry for that. Then it quickly moves and adjusts its position for the Y sound for a moment. Sorry for that. Let's continue. When I try to pronounce the whole phrase in a clear manner, we can notice that the letter D sound for dead, the last D, it is produced behind your upper teeth, right? And then after that D sound, it quickly moves and adjusts its position for the Y sound. However, in the flow of natural everyday speech or everyday conversation, this phrase is very often changes its sound. And people typically say, did ya eat your lunch? Here, something absolutely fascinating happens inside your mouth. The T sound that came from did and the Y sound, which is written as J in sound symbols, that came from you do not stay separate at all. So instead, they completely combine and actually transform into a brand new single sound, which is exactly like the J sound you hear at the very beginning of the word judge or jump. So this blending and changing occurs because both the D sound and the Y sound involve your tongue being in high position in your mouth, touching or coming very, very close to the roof of your mouth. So instead of your tongue having to make a clear separate step for the D and then a separate quick precise movement for the Y, your mouth finds an easier way. Your tongue automatically combines these two small movements into one single flowing action. Your tongue essentially prepares itself for the Y sound by subtly changing the D sound to already, include some of that Y quality. So this makes the new combined J sound much, much softer, and of course, it's significantly faster to say. It truly creates an incredibly smooth and effortless transition from the end of one word to the beginning of the next, which helps the words flow together without any tiny awkward breaks or extra effort. Which, of course, this makes the speech feel seamless. Okay? All right. Next, let's look very, very closely at the second phrase shown on this slide. The full and clear way to say this phrase is, don't you like it? Again, don't you like it? Again, don't you like it? Now, if you take your time and carefully say this phrase slowly, just like what I did earlier, you definitely make a very distinct letter T sound at the very end of the word don't, right? And then you make a very clear Y sound that begins the word you, which is the word after it. You can feel your tongue making a very precise stop for the T right behind your upper teeth, which means that when you try to say the letter T sound, it is produced by having your tongue touch the roof of your mouth behind your upper teeth. Okay? From So that is where the letter T sound is being made. So um, in this specific instance, it is then followed by the letter Y sound, no? Which is the first sound of the word after don't, which is you. So that's how we try to say it. There's clear T sound at the end of don't, as well as Y sound at the beginning of you. However, of course, in the course of fast natural conversation, this phrase changes very significantly in its sound, and people typically say "don'tcha," "don'tcha," "don't you like it?" "Don't you like it?" In this specific instance, the T sound from the end of don't and the Y sound from you do not just stand next to each other. They actually combine and fully transform into a completely new sound, which is exactly like the CH sound that you hear at the beginning of the word chair or chocolate. So you can think about how you typically make the T sound. Your tongue makes a very quick touch and then a small, swift release from behind your top teeth. For the Y sound, your tongue is also held quite high and tense in your mouth. When these two specific and distinct sounds meet and come together rapidly in quick speech, your mouth automatically and effortlessly changes its shape. It adapts to make this new single blended CH sound or the ch sound. So this particular transformation, it makes it remarkably easier and of course much faster for your mouth to shift from the position needed for the T to the position needed for the Y. Instead of your mouth making two separate quick and precise actions, it becomes one single continuous and flowing action. So this strongly helps your entire speech flow without any awkward pauses or sharp distinct movements between the words, which makes the phrase fully and truly seamless. Okay? All right. Let me quickly check my screen. All right. I think everything's good. Let's continue. Let's continue with the third example. The phrase in its full, complete, and distinct form is "Would you bring a bag?" Would you bring a bag? Now, if you pronounce this full sentence very slowly and clearly, you like just like what I did earlier. Would you bring a bag? You can like hear and feel a clear D sound at the very end of the word would, which is the first word we have here, and then you make a very clear Y sound that begins the word you. You can specifically feel the distinct movements of your tongue for each of these sounds. However, when people speak this phrase naturally in real conversations, it changes its sound, and they very often say would ya, would you bring the bag? Would you bring a bag? Now, just like we saw in the first example, did you? The D sound at the end of would and the Y sound from you blend together and change. They transform into that familiar new J sound, just like the one in judge. So this change happens because the Y sound strongly influences the D sound, which causes the D sound to change its mouth position. Your tongue slightly shifts forward and takes on a more Y-like quality, which combines with the D to form the J sound. This makes the transition between the two words incredibly smooth and effortless for your mouth, which of course helps you speak faster without having to make two hard, separate sounds. Your mouth finds the path of least resistance. Okay? Now, moving on now to the fourth example. Okay? The full phrase is "good girl is smart." Good girl is smart. If you pronounce it slowly, you make a clear D sound at the very end of good by touching, by touching your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Now, you can make a very distinct G sound at the very beginning of the word girl. You can notice that the D sound is made at the front of your mouth while the G sound is made at the back of your mouth. However, when people say this phrase naturally in everyday speech, it changes its sound, and of course it very often sounds like good girl. Okay? Good girl is smart. Good girl is smart. Here, the D sound at the very end of good, it actually changes its shape and completely becomes a G sound all in all. So both the D and the G sounds are made by briefly stopping the air in your mouth. G, G. Not G, but G, G, G. It is also made at the back of your mouth. G. And then, what the other, D, D. Okay. G, D, D, G. Alright. So it is briefly stopping the air in your mouth when you try to produce those two sounds. Now, the letter D here, it uses the front part of your tongue, right? While the G sound uses the back part of your tongue. When a D sound comes directly before a G sound, your tongue automatically and quickly moves to the back of your mouth to prepare for the upcoming G sound. This causes the D sound to change and take on the qualities of a G sound. This makes the entire phrase much, much easier to say because your tongue is already in the correct position for the next sound. So this smooth blending, it saves a lot of effort and makes the phrase flow much more naturally. Your mouth does not have to jump from front to back. It simply starts at the back. Okay? Finally, let's carefully examine the very last example on this slide. The pen is here. The pen is here. Now, if you pronounce it slowly, you make a very clear T sound at the very end of the word. That pen is here. So at the very end of the word, there's letter T sound at that. We do this by touching your tongue behind your teeth. Then you move your mouth to bring your lips together for the P sound that begins the word pen. The T sound is made with your tongue, and the P sound is made with your lips. But when people speak this phrase naturally in real conversation, it changes its sound very often, and it sounds like the the pen is here. The pen is here. In this specific situation, the T sound at the end of that changes its shape and actually becomes a P sound. So this particular change happens because the very next sound, the first sound of pen is a P sound. So both P and B sounds, which are very similar to P, or yeah, they are made by closing your lips together, right? P, P, B, B. Again, P, P, B, B. So they are made by closing your lips together. So when a T sound comes immediately before a P sound, okay, your mouth simply anticipates the P sound that is coming next. It does this by closing your lips clearly, which causes the T sound to automatically change into a P sound, which makes your transition between that and pen incredibly much easier and significantly more natural. So your lips are already in the precise position for the P sound, which eliminates a large sudden movement from your tongue to your lips. So that is the last example. No, we had 5 more examples to truly and clearly show us in great detail how assimilation works in full, in real, everyday English sentences as well as phrases. They fully demonstrate that assimilation is all about sounds changing to become more similar to their neighbors. So this natural process, it consistently makes our speech flow much more smoothly, which of course allows us to speak much faster and requires significantly less effort from our mouths. It is a fundamental and constantly occurring part of how natural and fluent English sounds in actual conversations. Okay, so that is our examples that we have. Now we are at, okay, for a moment. So far, what we did is We've talked about assimilation, right? Assimilation. And then, of course, the first thing that we did is provide its definition for us to really at least have the understanding of what happens or what assimilation is. Now, next to that, of course, we try to understand why does assimilation happen, because assimilation, we've already identified its definition, and of course we try to understand why assimilation happen. And after understanding everything, of course I've provided you some examples. We have here the first examples, a very simple example, and then this one also. So for the next, we have here another set of examples, no? Maybe we'll have one or two, depends on the time. Now here, as you can see, we will be having um, this time we are shifting our focus to paragraph assimilation. We will be working with different situations or contexts where assimilation can be practiced. It helps us understand and practice how sounds change when they're next to each other in spoken English. Remember, assimilation is when one sound actually changes its form to become more like a nearby sound or neighboring sound. This happens to create smoother transitions between words and to reduce the effort our mouth needs when moving from one sound to another. So it is a very common and natural part of fluent English. Okay? All right. We have here the very first situation. Talking to a friend. Very simple. First, I will read the paragraph aloud. As I read, try to listen carefully for those words where sounds seem to change or blend into each other rather than staying separate. Well, you already see the assimilation features. So let's try to listen how I say it. Okay? All right. Here's the paragraph. Listen closely. Feel free to follow along as I read. Hey, did you see her yesterday? I think she went to the mall, but I'm not sure. Don't you remember? She said she'd meet us there around noon. I tried to call, but she didn't answer. Would you try sending her a message? Maybe she'll reply soon. Now let's take a closer look for the specific assimilation features that are clearly marked for us within this paragraph on this slide. For each example, I want you to first say the full, clear original phrase, then actively practice saying the assimilated version multiple times. As you practice, truly pay attention to how your mouth feels and how the sound changes. Notice how this makes the phrase feel easier, quicker, and much smoother to say naturally. Okay? Our first example from this paragraph is did ya. This comes from the full phrase did you. Again, did you. Did you. In did ya, the D sound from did and the Y sound from you combine and change to make a J sound, like in judge or jump. This happens because your tongue is getting ready to make the Y sound, which causes the D sound to change its shape and, of course, to blend. This makes the sound softer and faster. Helps your mouth move quickly from one sound to the next. Okay? Let's try practice saying this. First, say very slowly and clearly. Hey, did you see her yesterday? Make sure you distinctly say both words. Did you? Hey, did you see her yesterday? Now practice the natural assimilated form. Try saying this several times, focusing on the quick blended sound. Hey, did you see her yesterday? Hey, did you see her yesterday? Hey, did you see her yesterday? Now feel how your tongue smoothly transitions to the J sound. Okay? Next we have don'tcha. Don'tcha. This comes from the full phrase don't you. Here the T sound from don't and the Y sound from you combine and change to make a CH sound, like in chair. This transformation makes your mouth change shape quickly and easily from the T position to the Y position, which of course reduces an effort. Let's practice this. First, say very closely, slowly, and clearly. Don't you remember? Don't you remember? Now practice the natural assimilated form. Say it repeatedly, focusing on the blended CH sound. Don't you remember? Don't you remember? Don't you remember? So you can notice how smoothly your mouth moves into the combined sound. Third, we have here would ya. This comes from the full phrase would you, which is similar to, similar to did ya. The sound from would and y sound from you, it blend and change into the J sound, which makes the sounds become softer and faster when you say them together. Of course, it creates a very smooth and easy flow between words. Your mouth just anticipates the next sound. Okay? Let's try practicing it. First, the clear and slow version. Would you try sending her a message? So this is the clear and full, like clear version where we try to really say, how do you call that? The complete phrase. Would you try sending her a message? Now practice the natural assimilated version. Okay. The assimilated version is would you, would you, would you. Okay. Would you try sending her a message? Again, would you try sending her a message? Would you try sending her a message? Now feel the ease of that transition. Okay. Finally, look at should. Now this is a contraction plus blending also. She would is the it involves both contraction and blending. So she would is the full form. This is an example of how words combine. The wool part of wood is dropped, so which is the contraction part, and the remaining D sound often blends with the surrounding sounds. While primarily a contraction, the quick transition to the D sound and then to the next word makes it a part of smooth, connected speech. Okay, let's try practicing it. First, say very slowly and make sure both words are clear. She said she would meet us here. For the assimilated version, she said she'd meet us here. She said she'd meet us here. Alright. Okay. So this is our first situation for paragraph assimilation. Let's continue with the next one. Planning the day is the context. Okay? Now, first, again, I will read the whole paragraph aloud. As I read, please try to listen very carefully for those words where sounds seem to actively change or blend into each other rather than staying separate and distinct. So this is the key to recognizing assimilation. Here is the paragraph. Let's listen closely and feel free to follow along as I read. I have to clean my room before lunch, but did you finish your homework already? If not, we can work it together. Would you rather do math first or sentence? Don't you think we should ask the teacher about question 5? It's kinda hard. Now let's take a very close look at the specific assimilation features that are clearly marked for us within this paragraph on the slide. Okay? For each example, I want you to first say the full, clear original phrase or word, and then, of course, I want you to actively practice as well. Okay? Practice saying the assimilated version multiple times as much as possible, because as you practice, you truly pay attention to how your mouth feels here, and especially how the sound specifically changes its quality, and of course how this makes the entire phrase feel noticeably faster, easier, quicker, and much smoother to say in natural setting or in conversational English. Our first example from this paragraph is have to. Have to. This comes from the full phrase have to. Again, have to. Again, the slide notes this as modal reduction with blending. In have to, the V sound from have changes to an F sound.